Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. I forgot to turn the microphone volume up. Let's see here. Let's get that at a good level here. And we'll start the music. Okay, how are you guys today? Monday. And well, the big thing that I think whatever we got going on here is there's going to be government shutdown next week probably. So let's come over to charts. Oh, we got some rollovers. Natural gas. So I want to start with the equity markets here because you can see that they are just moving down overnight and pretty strongly, I might add. And there was not like any kind of clear catalyst for this move, but they did move down. But at the same time, we were seeing yields come back towards the lows from Friday. And you just note that, you know, the move up that we had on Friday was relatively significant. And we believe, or at least our best theory as to what was the cause of that flow was Japanese yen intervention. So that's kind of where we're at. Coming over into oil. Oil still kind of within a range here after topping off at 92 last week. Gold and silver actually trudging along quite okay. Of course, they got just absolutely hammered after the Fed meeting and all of that, but they're actually doing pretty well and coming back to like some longer term support levels. So, or maybe they're longer term, I don't know. There's some moving averages that are kind of important over here, apparently. Okay. And then we got Kappa. Kappa's still struggling. And I think one of the big things here is that China continues to struggle. So copper, after being so strong for so long, market has basically given up on China. Okay, Bitcoin having a bit of a drop over the weekend, kind of falling out of this recent upward range that it has had, but not hitting like the 2,500 levels quite yet. Well, we're still far away from that. So then the dollar looking fairly strong again today. So now I've got, oh yes, okay, couple of things we get to look at here first to begin with the day. First thing is that I have a support ticket app open with Jigsaw because we cannot see our position over here. There's some sort of a bug in the latest version of the software. So let's just give a quick look at that. By the way, good morning, everybody. It's a good number of people here for bright and early on a Monday. Octavia, Samir, Jiwi, Saka Trader, that's a new name. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so they are looking at it, but they don't have... they're just saying we're going to try and duplicate it today. Okay. So... oh, we should make sure that we have our news squawk on, yes. Oh, we have 3-month and 6-month bill auctions today. And we just got Chicago National Activity Index negative spot 16 versus an expected spot 05. Not a significant number, though, that we typically see a whole lot of concern about. Now, the next thing is I've had this application for a long time, Epic Pen, and we weren't using it for the longest time because it like kind of like skips around. But they've had several new versions since, so let's see if they fixed it. I don't think they fixed it. Oh, that's so disappointing. I really wish I knew what it was that they changed that makes it just not work very well anymore. Say treasuries are moving easier to the upside. Well, so I think we are in an interesting situation flow-wise today. So let's close this application first. I'm so disappointed. I don't want to give up on it, though. I don't know. Is it like, it's not like my system is being pegged or anything. At least I don't think. What the hell, Steam? Why are you using 3 gigs? I'm just gonna kill that. And OBS is using 1500 megabytes. I don't remember it doing that sort of stuff. Scary ES. ES definitely doesn't look very happy this morning, does it? Okay, so here's a couple of things that I see going on here right now. So if we come over and just pop up the calendar here real quick, you can see that this is basically the last week of the month. And again, there's concerns about a government shutdown on the 30th. Okay, so many analysts, for instance, I was reading a note from Morgan Stanley that Zero Hedge reposted this morning. They were saying that they were preferring bonds over equities at this time because of the risks from a government shutdown. And they thought that the economic impacts were minimal, but there's a possibility that this goes on a long time. And then, you know, it becomes more and more uncertainly bad after that, right? So there's that. There's all of these other things going on with strikes and student loan repayments resuming and so on and so forth, okay? But then the other thing we got for the end of the month is the end of month flows. And the end of month flows this month are likely to be long for the S&P 500. So that is stuff that we might not see until the very end of the week, but just note that there is going to be that flow out there as there are some risk parity funds and so forth that have to reallocate their money every month, and they're going to be doing it along into equities. I don't know what that means for the treasuries, but I assume that that's maybe a little bit taking a little bit out of the treasuries, okay? If it's long in the equities, then it's probably short the treasuries. So Monday, there's not a whole lot of reason, you know, those flows are not necessarily like active per se, right? Like we know that those are flows lurking out there, but I don't have any direct reason to think that there would be strong flows in the treasuries at this moment. But there was definitely some movement overnight that is seemingly out of nowhere, right? So now would be a good time for us to kind of be on the lookout with a neutral opinion to see if the flow goes to the downside or the upside in the treasuries, right? But also with the understanding that if it is to the upside, for instance, it might be one of those things where it's like a really brief trend and it seems like it's, and then it just stops and it's all down the rest of the day, or vice versa. So, you know, I'm seeing right now what Jiwei was saying, that it does seem like it's a little bit easier for the treasuries to move to the upside. It's taking about 1,000 to 2,000 contracts to do it, but the flow does appear long. But I'm not seeing enough activity nor anything in there that really suggests to me a strong meta order. So I would I'm kind of in the it's market making mode right now, and I'm really skeptical about any move to the outside here. Okay, so we've got ECB's Snobble and President Lagarde speaking at the top of the hour. I also just heard we are getting some comments from Fed's Goolsby. The current path is unusual for inflation to fall like it is without unemployment rising. So he is speaking on CNBC at this moment. Treasury is not doing too much, although maybe starting to lean. Well, okay, so at 11.5 and 10 they moved down without much resistance at all. That is so lame. I mean, there does appear to be something wrong with my machine today, because, like, look at that. That's maybe just that application, though. What would to happen if I came in and did something like... Well, so first of all... I don't really see anything in here like really dominating like the... It could be that it's needs the GPU and it can't handle the GPU being used by OBS. I don't know if that makes sense. This slams. There's a couple of them in this that are pretty hype, huh? So if I come in here and I use the pen tool, okay. It does use the GPU. Oh, interesting. Creates a process for each. I'm trying to remember. How do I... go to details, maybe? I just really like me a great 808, you know? Boom. So what if I said the priority is real time? Change priority. Okay. And then I come over here and I select it. Well, that's not too promising the way that it's behaving. What's this stuff like? Analyze weight chain. What's that about? So weird. It's just like something is not playing nice with this app, because like when I click things, it just takes forever to respond and stuff. Oh, my other applications are doing that. What's with that? I don't know what the deal is with it. I don't know if it really doesn't like... Nah, well, I killed it. I just turned it off. I mean, to some extent, I'm sure that this machine has been going for years and years. It's probably could use a cleanup, you know, but I find it curious that OBS is using so much memory now. Maybe it's because OBS keeps all of the scenes in there now. I'm gonna go check. Yeah, I haven't gone through the OBS settings in a while. Let's go over there. Advanced. I guess that using 15 megs, 1500 megs is not a huge deal, but it just seems a little odd to me. So let me show you something else. This is freaking hilarious. Okay, so on Discord, these guys reach out to me. Their name is Algotic, and they have like a little Ninja Trader add-on that you put on your chart, and it changes a couple of things about your chart. So for instance, if I want to see how deep was this decline, I can just like right click now and it measures it for me. Yeah, pretty cool, right? It displays the time. You see over there on the right, it kind of, the current price is displayed a little bit differently, and it shows you how many seconds is left in the bar and that sort of stuff. So basically it's a couple of chart enhancements, like not really things that I care about. But you know, it's kind of like Trading View for Ninja Trader. It kind of adds a couple of things that are nice about Trading View. Also, you can resize or zoom in with the mouse. That's kind of nice. Okay, but you know what the killer feature of this is? So look at the bottom left of the chart. Do you notice any? Look at the bottom left of this chart and the bottom left of this chart. You notice anything different? You notice anything different about that? You see that? So if you come into this to the indicator itself, and you look at Algotic's chart enhancer, down at the very bottom, you can change the color of the copyright. You know, if I had it cornflower blue, see, now I see the Ninja Trader, you know, copyright 2023 Ninja Trader down at the bottom. I can change it to transparent. You see this? Are you seeing this? Killer feature, like the suite, I'm telling you. Okay, so this suite is like $300. I feel like it's worth $300 just to get rid of the Ninja Trader logo, don't you? It's just this is freaking hilarious. That's like the killer feature, is you can get you can get rid of the Ninja Trader logo in the bottom left corner. Okay, well, I'm not hearing anything more from Fed Schoolsby. We did have a little bit of bearish sentiment in the treasuries while he was speaking on CNBC, but nothing too significant. But we kind of look like we are just kind of middling now. So I think that we should move on. We do get more comments at the top of the hour from the ECB. So, but in the meantime, I think that it's time for our little equity research session that we were talking about doing. So, I think I want to do three things. I want to do just a little bit of a checkup on the main stocks that I own right now. And then I want to, well, if there's any tickers that you guys are interested in that we could maybe look at, we could certainly pull those up and add them to my list. And then I think I want to start building like a big top-down watch list of sorts. So basically, like, I want to have all of the major sectors and pick between 2 and 5 stocks for each of those sectors to represent the best and worst performing assets in those sectors that we can kind of use, because the way that I want to play this is based on where we are in the interest rate cycle and what I think what's going on in the economy. I want to go overweight or underweight certain sectors, and so I need to have choices of things that would be good for both a long and a short for each sector. All right. So, but let's start with just looking up for the headlines of, REMF and all that sort of stuff. So, one of the things I like to do, finance.yahoo.com. By the way, good morning, Michael. We'll come over here and read what people are saying about rare earth resources again, because that's always entertaining. Man, this guy is pretty persistent. There's this guy that's like short. He posts the same garbage every day on multiple boards. Where else would you go? Not a whole lot has been posted to anything. So nothing from there. Another thing that I like to do is just go to Google. And use the tools to say, I only want to see from the last week. Doesn't look like there's any nothing specific to the company, just like general pages that it's picked up. Okay, so next thing is I don't have any recommended stocks that you guys want to look at. So next, I think I should start building my list here. The question is, how do I want to do it? I'm leaning towards using Excel. What's this? 60 Minutes discovered the U.S. is financing more than weapons in Ukraine. The government is buying seed/fertilizer for farmers, paying the salaries of first responders, and subsidizing small businesses. Okay. That is new information. I'm not shocked. I actually was hearing some so apparently hold on. Apparently, over the weekend, there were some Ukrainian forces broke through the second line of defense. So, I remember about a month ago saying, it doesn't seem like this is going very well. This seems like this could be a conflict that just kind of like turns into a never-ending conflict sort of a thing. Because they only have so much time to make a breakthrough before things get muddy and then you get into the winter and everything. But it seems that both the amount of time before you get into the muddy season, you still got plenty of time left there apparently. And number two is apparently the Ukrainians aren't bothered by that. They seem to be saying that we can push through into the winter if we need to. Which is kind of a little odd. Well, should I say odd? It's a little different from what I was hearing before, And so it seems like it's still going. But then I will get when I read conservative outlets, especially Zero Hedge, and I got to tell you, I do not trust Zero Hedge in the least bit on this stuff because they have absolutely in the past kind of played stooge for Russia. Okay, so I'm skeptical, should I say suspicious, that they are either like being played by, under Russian influence because they're naive, if not just outright being, deceptive. And but what they're saying is like, this is over. There's no way that the Ukrainian army would go for like continuing this, and it's only going on because Zelensky insists and the West needs to keep the facade going, and so on and so forth. So that's what you're getting from that side. And meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, they're like, there's more reports they're breaking through. It's not done. And the first two fortifications are like the heaviest. So if they've broken through on the third, that could be like a significant thing. Like you could be looking at in the next few weeks a decisive Ukrainian victory, or this thing really die down, because if the Russians come in and plug that hole up, then it's like over for Ukraine, right? I think ES will drop below its daily low and fill the gap. Since TweetDeck is now a paid service, are you using... no, I am verified, or whatever they call it. I have the blue check on Twitter, so I'm still using it. My sense is that the people that we were really watching Twitter for are largely still there participating on Twitter. More importantly, there really isn't a viable alternative, like a platform where you can get live updates like tweets, small updates live that's suitable for current news. It just doesn't exist. Like there's threads and all of these things, but they're not really geared towards live updates like TweetDeck is. So yeah, I'm still using TweetDeck. And of course the News Squawk. Yeah, I mean that just means I rely on the News Squawk more than ever. Uzi's like, Threads is still around? Question. Yeah. I don't know. Last week, Elon was all talking about, well, we're just going to have to charge everybody to use Twitter. I'm hoping that was just a trial balloon and that one doesn't happen, because if you can't participate without paying $1 a month or something like that, I don't think that's going to work. I haven't heard about them since launch. It really died down quickly, didn't it? It was like, so here's the problem though, is I see this with basically all social networks now, that like I'm not seeing growth on social networks, not even TikTok anymore. Those ecosystems have kind of like stabilized around their prominent creators that are big enough to weather whatever changes they're making to their algorithms, and the rest is just like people aren't bothering. I was talking about this with my uncle when we were working on our table yesterday, but like one of the things that I kind of think happened to millennials was that when Facebook came along, they basically really moved towards using Facebook for all of their social networking kind of stuff. That's how they're keeping up with friends and family from a long time ago, and that's where they're kind of talking to people for like groups and like finding a sense of community and stuff. Like a lot of millennials did that, and then what happened was twofold. One, Facebook kind of changed things so that it really sucked for that sort of stuff, because they wanted to make it so that you had to pay for reach. So now you weren't actually getting updates from all your friends. And two, Facebook did all of these privacy things and a number of things so that people just didn't want to use Facebook anymore. And so a very large contingent of users just completely left Facebook. And there was no replacement, right? So millennials put a large portion of their social life on Facebook, and then it just died, and they never got it back. And then especially with the pandemic and everything, I feel like that people are still trying to rebuild their communities. Facebook can't even tell me someone commented on a post for 72 hours. It's a worthless platform. So yeah, with the threads, it's like it comes out and people are interested and excited about it because they want to see like a platform that fulfills their needs, you know, that kind of does what Facebook did for them a long time ago. But like they're just gonna get on there and they're gonna see a bunch of celebrities that they don't care. Like that was the thing about threads, is like they started out, I had all the celebrities and stuff. Like, these are all the people that you want to like. This is what made Twitter popular, right? So we got it all over here, and like everybody logged up for it, took a look at it one day, and then forgot about it. Facebook post-Trump really did become trash in every noticeable way. Content filtration-wise, but surely functionality-wise. I don't know. I don't feel like that the functionality had changed. The things that about the functionality that changed that I hate happened long before Donald Trump got elected. Quite frankly. Like in 2016, 2015 or so, I was kind of like, Facebook is already ruined, but at least I can use it as a platform to like reach out to regular people and talk about politics. So I use it in 2016 as many people did for politics, which is kind of like, that turned out to be a disaster. I mean, not for me personally or anything, but it's just like getting people more involved in politics ended up being a really bad thing, right? And then, and then since then, like I rarely touch, because it used to be that I would try to post something on Facebook at least once or twice a day, you know? Easier to push on the downside in the treasuries. You see that they kind of went to new lows pretty unceremoniously. We are now well below or well above 4.5 on yield. I got something stuck in the back of my mouth. I'm going to try and get it out, so I'm going to go away for a second. Well, that didn't work. Let's see here. So you're saying there was a huge unload at 11 and 10.5? Yeah. I'm still not seeing anything that's like huge. So I do think it's significant that we kind of moved down to new lows there without having to trade a whole lot of volume. They're filling it in now as we come back across it, but it still looks like it's in market making mode to me. I don't know. 5K bid, yeah, it was left behind there as we come back. That's pretty standard. Now that we're back into like there being standard liquidity on the treasuries, I think that we should expect to see a big order just beyond the high and low of the day now, pretty much all the time. And if you're moving down lows and then you come back, there will probably always be a big order left behind like that. Now, I guess another thing that we got to talk about is there was a poll, I think it was from the Washington Post, that was like Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, showing Trump like 10 points ahead or something like that. So I was just thinking back, because this Wednesday, by the way, the Republican debate is Wednesday. You haven't heard anything about it, but the Republican debate is on Wednesday. But you know what? Thinking back on it, was like, well, I'm surprised that the Republicans aren't more interested in maybe having somebody else run, and the interest in that race is just completely dead. But like, if Donald, the big argument against Donald Trump, that you make to Republicans at least, is that he won't beat Joe Biden. Okay. But if the polling is that he will easily beat Joe Biden, then that pretty much destroys the argument for anybody else, doesn't it? Because, why rock the boat? I want to say rock the boat. Like, honestly, there's some people in the Republican Party that they're just Trump no matter what. These are probably people that were not traditionally Republicans, right? But they're just diehard, and they're also people that I would say are less engaged voters in general. Okay, but they were brought into it because of Donald Trump. They're 100% loyal to him. If Donald Trump were to lose, there might be some like sore losers out there that are like, well, I'm not going to vote now because I think that the Republican Party is corrupt, etc., etc., etc. Or even worse, Donald Trump does a third party run and splits the vote or something like that, right? But so you just go with Trump as your nominee, and if the polling shows that he's going to win anyways, then what's, why take the risk of doing somebody else, right? Like if as long as Donald Trump is ahead of Joe Biden in the polls, the risk reward for Republicans kind of turns into, you just go with Trump. Whatever happens, we know Biden not winning. It's obvious whether you're left or right. Is just common sense. Well, it really, I'm really starting to see the nation coalescing against Joe Biden. Although I think that they're primarily against Joe Biden because they believe that he is senile. Like that's the thing that I think is really hurting Joe Biden, is that nobody thinks he's competent enough to lead. I would argue that the Biden administration is doing everything that they want to do. That the Biden administration is actually, from what I can see, acting pretty competently. Is just that everything that they want to do is just absolutely terrible. Right? Especially on the border, it's like just willful, They really are just trying to get as many people across the border as possible and looking the other way and then pretending like, oh yeah, no, we're strong on the border. There's nothing going on over there. Yeah, right. It's just straight up gaslighting over there. But that's what they want. They're doing what they want. Have you ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier, Joe. I've been to a caucus. In fact, I was caucus precinct captain, or whatever you want to call it. What do they call it? chair, precinct caucus chair for many cycles. Until I moved here, and then I was it for the first year. But I've got a couple of people in my area that are very engaged. Like, there's not really a point in being the precinct chair when you have like the former county Republican Party chair in your precinct. So, which is actually kind of a relief to some extent. So, like, okay, cool. Plus, all of the battles that I was interested in are done and fought and lost. So, I don't know if I would say that Biden's administration has a really good, competent people per se. It's like, oh my gosh. So like the one that grates me the most is Jean-Pierre. Oh my gosh. That woman. Like, listen, the press secretary is like the worst job in the world, okay? It doesn't matter what you do, people hate you. You cannot win as press secretary, okay? But this lady is just like straight up, it's like incompetent in my opinion. Like, it's just like she doesn't understand the job. The number of times that they've come up and the first question out of the gate from the press is some question about a story in the news, and she has no clue what they're talking about. Like, come on. And it's not like, yeah, sometimes maybe they were busy that day, they haven't had time to read that story and everything, but like, this is usually like things brewing over the weekend and stuff that I feel like everybody in the press knows about. And she should know about, and if she doesn't know about it, she should still be able to come up with like a good response to it. And she's just like, I don't know about that. We're not going to answer that question. The way that she deflects from questions sometimes is also like really infuriating. Of course, the press secretary will always dodge questions and stuff like that. But the way that she does it is like, oh, you're such an awful person for even asking me that. It's such BS. And she's just not cut out for the job, man. She's, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna go in and say that it was like a diversity hire or anything like that, because, you know, maybe she was really more qualified than the other people that they had on the list. I don't know. All I know is that she has not performed well in the job. She has not performed well in the job. And, you know, there's been plenty of press secretaries that didn't really perform very well in the job. But this one is particularly bad. People like Jake Sullivan or Lloyd Austin are really good. I don't know. So the thing that I was going to say is I don't even know if it's so much an issue of competence, because when you really look at what's going on, the Biden administration has become very ideological, right? Like the questions and the things that they're dealing with, at least the ones that we're hearing about and care about and are mad about, are not things that are like, you know, deep, keeping organized and executive level kind of stuff. It's not that at all. It's the activists in the party say to do X, and so they do X, you know? And they're doing it. They're implementing it, and they're getting it done. So I think from that perspective, you could say that, like, they're being effective at doing what they want to do. It's just that what they want to do has just been terrible for everybody, in my opinion. That's maybe working against them to some extent, but largely I think that the American public just does not think that Joe Biden is all there. You know, the constant gaffes and all of that is just weighing on them. Well, they just pushed some new lows there a little bit again. we have gotten to now, like after we broke the lows. So this is kind of interesting. When we broke the lows the first time, I was kind of like, well, I mean, it is interesting that they broke there and everything, but I'm still not seeing enough for me to justify. Okay, so now after that, then we had about 10,000 contracts short. So I think that what we've had here after that is actually a little bit of puking. It looks like some people puked into the lows. But that doesn't really help me on like, do I want to go short? I'm still kind of judging against that. Thinking, you know, it's a Monday and all that. Anyways, I probably got a little bit deeper into the politics than I intended to for the Monday, but you know, that's kind of the thing that's going on today that people are talking about, and it's curious. One of my favorite bird's eye view tricks is to see huge order unload and then see which way is moving, or you know. Well, when I see a really huge order unload though, I'm kind of anticipating that we get stuck there a little bit. And I didn't see anything too big. Like I think that the thing that's going to be difficult in the coming months is that, you know, a 3,000, for instance, that 34, 37 traded at 10.5. Under normal liquidity conditions, that's pretty standard. So I can only think of that as a big tick and not necessarily a huge order. It does seem though that we are kind of pulling back awfully quickly, so I'm a little bit so another thing that I think we need to be wary of is that if it was the Japanese yen on Friday that was intervening, here this morning they've been pretty aggressive. You know, we have to be on the lookout for them coming in and trying to stop everybody out again. You know, the short has been a really tough trade because so many big moves against you. I guess with my long-term trade here, how much does it say that I've made now on this? It's not really making too much more. But, you know, it's doing pretty good. But I have enough profit baked into that one that I don't have to worry about those. But like on an intraday basis, they just keep screwing everybody over. Like even with this pullback seems pretty steep, doesn't it? Like there's a pretty solid amount of volume that is now traded between 07 and 09. Anyways, so I do think I'm going to make our little list in Excel because we're going to be doing all this stuff in calculations and everything. So it would be between Excel and Google Docs. And I think that we'll just have more flexibility with Excel. Because if we do it in Excel, then maybe at some future point, we might want to plug a platform into it or something like that. We can do that. If it's all built in Excel. Belenka work. So I'm gonna start out with just sector symbol. So I have REEMF. I don't know what we would put that in as a sector. I mean, it is materials. But I think that the reason that I have it in there is it's like a speculative YOLO play, right? So I'm going to put it in as that. Okay, some sectors we want. Materials, technology. Maybe we should split that out to be like AI, cloud. And I think that's good for now. Healthcare sector, real estate, manufacturing. What else we got? Oh, discretionary retail. Oh, here you go. Aging baby boomers is a category they have on there. That's definitely one category that I want to have. Automobile industry would be a good one. Guide to the 11 market sectors. What do they have? Yeah, we'll do this. This list of 11, I think, was what we really want. They're still just sitting there at 08, huh? Deleted. I think I can get rid of manufacturing as a real estate is on that list. Software is on that list. AI and cloud can come down. Oops. Oh, I don't know how you resize things. My Excel skills are very rusty. Hmm. How do I clear formatting? Oh, here it is. Yeah. Clear. Clear all. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Clear formats. There we go. Risk on, risk off. We could do that. Defensive. As I could do it that way. Although these are really the ones that we're interested in. This is tough because now we have to go into, okay, what are the ones that we're interested in looking at in information technology? But really what I got to do is I need to pick a stock that I'm really interested in. Let's just, I think the one that I'm most curious about, Microsoft, and INTC, Intel. Let's do Intel. Do Intel. So this is quite a decent amount of volume now trading now in the treasuries at 07. So they tick down another 2 ticks. So are they going to go for another leg? Well, we got the S&P opening here. 527, huh? I see what's going on here. I see. I'm misreading this. I'm misreading because I'm only kind of keeping an eye on it, like I'm a little bit disconnected, and I'm not watching the whole picture here. I'm not noticing how aggressively they're selling over here in the 30-year. So what's really going on is steepening in the yield curve again. So they are buying the 5 and selling the 30, and they're more selling the 30 more than anything else, and so the yields just get hammered and run higher. So I remember seeing, I thought I had like a spreadsheet or something that would use to value companies. And I don't think I have any such thing saved. I think it was a discounted cash flows. Discounted cash flows spreadsheet. I think that's what I want to do, so. Okay. I'm also wondering... I should come over and do it in this tab. And there's stock screener. Yep, they have price earnings growth. There's definitely some volatility coming in there a little bit. I'm thinking maybe... Export is $20 a month. The premium gets a screener, huh? Well, what do I actually want? I think that I want to see current price, DCF, PE, price from forward price earnings growth ratio. And something like maybe current ratio for debt. And just growth overall. So I think that what I need to do is I need to, get some services to do some filtering, and then based on that, get these. And then I can't, the DCF will be, I'll have to do that on my own. They sure seem to bounce back hard. Okay, so even though I don't have a premium account, it's letting me look at what's in their stock screener. There they go. Oh, it says show me everything. Don't show me anything greater than 4. Cool. So only companies that are... Oh, really? It says that that Nvidia is undervalued? Do I have that wrong? I'm not sure on this one, the value. Discount. I think that that's what I want. I only want stuff that earnings growth in the next year is 10% or more. Okay. It's funny that the pictures that they've got in the background for these tech companies ones are all pictures of Adafruit boards. Okay, so I'll look at that. I've liked that website. Maybe I will just give in and get the premium. But it only lets you look at 30 companies a month. That's kind of like... I was curious. So they came all the way back to basically where we started. Now, the Japanese yen has been down this whole time, so... And the Japanese yen isn't bouncing like these are, so... Maybe it's still an opportunity to go short. $2K. I'm not sure what you mean there, Octavius, about the 2K bid and ZB at evens is the pull. I would expect there to be a lot of liquidity at evens and a lot of liquidity at the low. I don't see anything too interesting in the other ones. till we get down to like 108. ZN. The equities appear to be on a bull run trying to erase the overnight losses. I would say we're still fairly early here, you know? 743. YouTube is punishing us because we didn't do an ad. You know, now is a good time to do an ad. So let's do that. Insert an ad here. Jeez, what's this? French President Emmanuel Macron said the government would ask the fuel industry to sell at a cost price and would grant €100 in aid to the poorest workers who drive to work, stem the impact of inflation on households. The Prime Minister will bring together all the players in the sector this week and we will ask them to sell at cost price. That is to say, no one makes a margin, Macron said in an interview with France's TF1 and France 2 television stations. Yeah, like... It really seems to me like these people in charge just don't know what they're doing. They either don't know what they're doing or they are like intentionally trying to destroy the economy, right? Yeah, cause more inflation to fight inflation. It just doesn't make sense. It's particularly... You know, the Europeans always kind of hold themselves up as like more serious than the Americans, you know, that their politics is more serious than the Americans. But then they're pulling this crap, you know, more intelligent. Yeah. But I mean, do they get as much pushback in Europe on these sorts of things as they do in the US? Because anytime anybody even talks about that sort of stuff in the US, everybody's like, no, that's dumb. Like, you don't do that stuff without people talking about it, which is why Democrats are hurting right now, is because everybody said that there's going to be inflation. And then guess what? They were right. There was inflation, you know? But in Europe, it seems like they're just going whole ham on these things, and it's almost like nobody's questioning it. Nobody in power, at least. I just can't. How can the people in power be so naive? I mean, they're doing things that are just like so well. I mean, like price caps and stuff like that just cause shortages. See, Jimmy Oreo, I got this from Jim. He says, we elect the economically ignorant. I just can't imagine that they're that ignorant about that. Wow, you're long 07? That's not bad, my friend. Although I don't know, I'm still kind of wondering, can they get higher than 10? You know, you're having doubts. You want to give it? Well, there's probably not too much of a downside in holding it a little bit for here, isn't there? Because I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm still leaning towards maybe the flows are going to be to the short side, because I'm not seeing the Japanese yen bounce back at all. But I don't necessarily want to get short here. Although I suppose that if the trade really is short, you might not get a better chance. That's tough. I don't think that it's going to go yet, though. I think that I could wait. I think that if I wanted to do that, I could probably wait another... hold on. I think I could probably wait another 10 minutes. I think I could probably wait another 10 minutes and it would probably still be at the same spot. But I still didn't really have things to really strongly suggest that the flows would be one way or the other. It's kind of was thinking that this is a little bit of a decision point to see starting the week out which way they decide to go, right? So they went a little bit to the downside. When it was happening, it seemed a little excessive, but I'm not going whole ham on that because I'm expecting things to shift a little bit. Which is to say, there could be more long flows or at least more balanced flow than there was last week because of end of month and risk off events in our future. And I think that there are some of these banks like Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan in particular that appear to be recommending clients go long bonds. So I also, only really saw strong volume come into the Treasury complex after we made those new lows. It was like somebody puked. Otherwise, the cumulative deltas are pretty flat, are about where they were when we started this session. So, that doesn't give me a direction on the flows. That doesn't, if we were just down like 15,000 contracts and we were still down 15,000 contracts across all of them. We are in the 10-year, but not. But again, that was only a puke. So I don't think that we actually have solid evidence for flows being in one way or another yet. Just that there was some volatility. But that's kind of why I'm like, well, if it's going to come back, that they came back to 11 so quickly is definitely something. But I can kind of see my seller average position at 11.5, and then the swing high from before the move at about 12.5. And that might be difficult for them to get above that. Well, that would put us at the high of the regular session. Okay, breaking market news, financial juice. Bank of England sells 650 million of bonds in auction. Receives 905 million in bids. I think that maybe I just need to recenter things because they're not lining up quite right here. ECB President Lagarde says that borrowing costs will remain elevated for as long as necessary to tame consumer prices, even as the economy struggles. Oh, I never remember hearing anything from my new squawk about that. Maybe I'm just going to reset that, sir. It looks like another hole at 9.5. 9.5/9. This is a relatively large bid there at 08 half. Oh, by the way, it's not only end of month, it's end of quarter. That's a good point. Although, you know, like, to that point, was a lot of flows in the overnight session, but I don't think that those were related to any of that. I don't think that we'll see any of that flow until the end of the week. Because the quarters have had the quarter has had some big moves even before the yeah. Energy stock surge after biggest short squeeze in a year is the only interesting story I see on Zero Hedge. There's 10 again. That's looking good, man. I'm still not seeing super strong flows, although the 30-year does appear to be tilted a little bit to the long side still. Let's clear up above us there in the 30-year. See if they do anything interesting at 16. There's always fun shenanigans there. Let's see here. That little bump up happened at 7:40 my time. So it's only been about 15 minutes since that happened. They are running up there though, like they're going for another leg, which is very curious. Yet it in terms of price, it looks like a meta order, but I'm not really seeing it in the across the curve. I do see the yield changing a little bit, like kind of we had a pretty aggressive move on the yield curve steepening, so maybe it's just flattening out a little bit. Yeah, like my offer to close the trade. Oh, you have your offer up at like what, 11? According to the New York Times, the first batch of Abrams tanks arrived in Ukraine on Saturday. Interesting. Yeah, because one of the things I think is deceptive about the reporting in Ukraine, you know, like people will report how many tanks they lost. Well, the majority of those tanks that they've lost have been from minefields and were not necessarily the new tanks. The Ukrainians have kept the majority of their power in reserve still. So if they make a breakout this week, which kind of sounds like it could happen this week if it's going to happen, you know, you could see things like change really quickly. This is the thing I find it just happens over and over and over and over again in politics, is like whatever the thing is that we're sitting there and we're like analyzing to death and we're all thinking about ends up not mattering because some other thing changes and that ends up becoming the deciding factor, you know? So like we're all thinking about the Ukraine war, we're all thinking about will the Republicans pick somebody other than Donald Trump? Will the indictments hurt Donald Trump? And it's like, well, yeah, but for one, how does if Ukraine is like achieves a decisive victory, for instance, I don't think that that's the most likely scenario, but let's just say that it happened. That would like completely change the field, wouldn't it? Having a little bit of trouble reaching that 11. I'm kind of wondering here, am I getting... I don't know. It seems like that the yen is not actually moving. I don't know what the deal is. Like, my chart is up to date and everything from what I can tell. I am seeing it move up and down. But the yen, the treasuries have come back a lot here. The movement doesn't really seem to match up with the dollar either. So... okay, usually takes 10 half. That was well... that was a good catch. Like 07, it's a gutsy thing to go for a reversal. That absorption. I don't know if I don't feel like I've seen too much absorption per se, but they do kind of seem reluctant to go, right? But I do think that might maybe be appropriate because I'm still, this up move is a little bit fishy. Like, this kind of looks to me more like the downside was somebody puking, and now we're just reverting back to where we were. Like, okay, 5,000 at 10.5. I haven't seen like an iceberg or anything, but there has been a lot traded there. That was a weird move in the equities there. All of a sudden got smacked down by about 3 or 4 points. That's funny that Jiwi recognizes the reference to Israeli weapons, but didn't know that it was a cartoon reference. But that's probably why they picked the name, huh? Oh man, dude, you got out like a bandit. They came back so hard. I look away for like a split second and it's down 3 ticks. Like, what the heck? That kind of suggests to me, though, that this whole area here is a little soft. I've seen oil move down pretty hard. if anything matches up with like when the bonds peaked and turned around, it's when oil peaked and turned around. So maybe it's the oil treasury correlation that's causing problems. Like oil was on the upside until about the equity open. That does seem likely to me. So that's the first time I think we've seen it. We've been talking about it, kind of been looking for it. I think that's the first time we've seen where there's a really solid connection with oil and treasuries possibly being correlated. You use the cost basis. Oh, well, if you were, yeah, I see how you would say that. Yeah. You'd see that they were like at the stop out point, and then you'd see a little bit, it's clearly oversold. A little bit of a volume there. Reversal, yeah. And if your call is this isn't a trend day, we're not seeing enough to suggest like a really strong meta or to the downside. It was maybe just a stop out, then totally could buy there, yeah. They didn't quite get back to the seller's cost basis though. It sure looked like a trend day overnight. The flows are not to me like something that's like a trend day though, right? Like when I'm talking about a trend day, I'm talking like you're just seeing consistent market selling out the wazoo, like just a really strong imbalance that's very persistent and is likely to last all day long. This is like, well, it moved overnight, but we're not really sure why. Yeah, the offers didn't really match the market selling in terms of stacking down. Yeah. And the thing that still kind of kept me out of all of this was, we started at like what, 10 half, 11. We started at 11, okay? And then when we breached 10, so it was like 10 and 9 half, hardly any traded. And then after we had reached and fell out into lows, then we saw selling, and there was quite a bit of selling right there at the first, and then ever after that it was kind of like sideways. So I come back and show you here, right? We fell, didn't really do anything, and then after we were at the lows, then puke, right? So it was really, this one right here was kind of like, not a big deal, and then puke. So I think that this move from around 09 to 06 was a large player that had positioned themselves long and decided to give up on the trading puke. Puked into the lows, pushed it lower, and then once they were done, it just kind of came back up there. Now I'm starting to see some resumption of the selling, so once again, it's a little bit tepid though. Yeah, you bailed good, and it was kind of like what we were saying earlier about if we wanted to get the short, are you really going to get better than like around the 10.9 area. It turns out you didn't. You were shooting for 16? In ZN, 16 seems like a little bit of a stretch, yeah. I guess in ZB they kissed 16 and then came back, so. Always fishy things going on at 16, I tell you that much. Must say this little move down after Uzi got out though is a little disorganized, wouldn't you say? And by the way, the Japanese yen just took a little bit of a plunge lower. So it looks like that what pushed us off of those highs was the yen. This isn't so if I'm reading this right, then reading the treasury market has just become a lot more complicated, because if we're getting both the yen and oil creating relatively significant correlations with the treasuries, that could make sorting out what the treasury is going to do really tough. That could make things start to feel really random, you know? Something about that makes me a little apprehensive. I think that I should be excited to some extent, because if I'm seeing it and I'm ahead of the curve, that could be an edge for us, but it sounds complicated to me, you know? Oh, I hit my head on the microphone there, trying to scratch my nose. Euro, no, I don't get the data for the Euro stuff. Walfer, sorry. Alligators in Discord commenting on what I was saying with the oil, saying oil energy to become more and more important as high rates cut the price wages loop. It sure seems like it. Although there's no real clear reason as to why oil turned around when it did. Did you see? Oh my gosh! I saw all of the headlines about it, and I saw a lot of people getting excited about it. I didn't really go and read the story to figure out what was going on there. The whole thing, it just seems a little weird, wild. Like, how could the Canadian Prime Minister make such a big mistake? Like, they just literally found any kind of Ukrainian veteran that they could. I mean, that's what it sounds like that happened, right? So they found a Ukrainian veteran that, quote, fought against the Russians. Didn't sit down and think, oh yeah, he fought with the Nazis. Like, come on. That's the sticky story on Zero Hedge. Watching the ES DOM trading the S&P looks enticing for the volatility and moves that once they start, they never seem to come back, but correctly reading the order flow seems very challenging. Correct. So this is like the larger edge that we have, basically, is that we're nimble, and when these big players start putting their money to work, they just move the market so much, right? I think that NVIDIA is probably a good example of a stock that, you know, like the amount that moved was just insane. And yeah, they probably pushed it too far, at least in the short term, because I still see that company as having a bright future. But like, it was basically like everybody and their dog all got in at once, you know. So the prices always move way further on the edges than they should. And so when you're trading equities, when you're trading the ES futures, what that means is you can just catch amazing runners. You catch a runner and you're going to, you know, like almost double your account in a day sometimes. But for some reason, well, not for some reason, the issue with it is that there's a lot of volatility in between that, right? And so when you're trying to catch the runner, you get stopped out so many times trying to make it happen, you know? And it's really random about it. And some of the best moves happen right out the gate from the open. So unless you're willing to get in the volatility at the open and make a bet on the open, and that just seems like a crapshoot sometimes. Everyone who fought against the Russians in World War II was a Nazi. Oh, for sure. But I don't think they didn't think about it that far. I find it interesting though. You know, I think that this again is one of those things like what does this mean for policy and all that? It doesn't really mean anything, right? But it is like the top story on the conservative websites right now, right? Which I think really suggests something about the conservative, like, what do I call it? Psychology? Like what is it that conservatives right now are really upset about, right? It seems to me that they're more upset about the Ukraine war than anything else. Because there's this one hand that I've always thought, when I think back on when Bill Clinton was president, the things that I remember the most from when Bill Clinton was president was like when he bombed Baghdad and stuff, right? You remember that stuff? I remember being a kid and watching TV and showing the little, you know, it was like the night vision camera of shots going up into the sky, shooting at planes and not hitting any planes and stuff blowing up and everything, right? Like Bill Clinton hit them twice, I think. And the Republicans were always like, this is to distract from this and that and all of these sorts of, you know, they were always upset about that. It's like when a Democrat does it, Republicans get super upset about any kind of military intervention, which is why it kind of was a little weird, I think. This is why they call them neoconservatives, right? Was because when you got George Bush in office, and George Bush went full ham on, we're going to invade Afghanistan, we're going to invade Iraq, and all of these sorts of things, right? And Dick Cheney was like super aggressive. They called them neocons because they were conservatives, but they had the liberal foreign policy, I guess, because in their eyes, a conservative foreign policy does not involve getting involved in conflicts that are unnecessary, right? And then you had all of these people that were upset about the Iraq war from the beginning. I'd say that it was mostly liberals. You know, like I remember when George Bush went in, the left was very upset. Like that's how MoveOn.org started, right? And then Obama became president, and Obama never did anything about it. So then Obama kind of became part of that, like the pro military industrial complex part of the party, right? So then those guys, oh, and then there was the whole thing with like Edward Snowden and surveillance, and Obama made surveillance stuff way worse, right? So then those people felt like they didn't have any home, and so the anti-war faction kind of came home in the Republican Party, and now it seems like that one of the strongest driving factors in the Republican Party today is the anti-war faction. What I kind of feel like that the top priority for conservatives right now should be the border, but you can see with the whole debate and negotiation over the government shutdown that there seems to be some disagreement, because there's kind of like a couple of different there's three different fronts here, basically, right? There's government spending is too high overall, we're not protecting the border, and we're spending a lot of money in Ukraine. And so some conservatives are like, want to fight on all of those fronts, and others are saying, let's just focus on the one that's like a clear win. Like, let's just focus on the border, for instance, which makes sense to me because Americans still by and large support Ukraine. And if you oppose it, you want to pull funding and everything like that, and Ukraine like achieves a victory in the next week, which I'm not saying is likely again, but it's a possibility. Like, how dumb are you going to look then? I can't get used to the fact that liberals in America are left. What? You haven't had any problems with getting whipsawed, but nailing the entries and exits? Well, I mean, the thing is, you don't have to catch every little move, right? If you're getting something, I think that if I was hitting well in the S&P 500, you know, I would just want to be in a trade where I catch it, it goes to my target really quickly. I never get any kind of flows against me, you know. But that's the difficulty, is that there's so much randomness. It's really hard to catch that. Liberal in Europe means center? So, well, that's because they're trying to deceive you. Listen, anytime that somebody talks about the political center or the moderate, like, they present that as like, you don't want to be too extreme one thing or one thing. But you realize that how extreme you are from one thing or the other thing can only be determined in relation to the thing, right? Like, what is the center in America can only be defined by looking at the far right and the far left. And you're going to say that, like, the correct way that is maybe somewhere in the middle? But why would that be? That doesn't make any sense. Because, you know, if everything moved to the left, then the center would just be like what the left is today. It wouldn't be, you know. And then you're going to say somewhere in the middle is the correct way? It doesn't make any sense. Right? It's just relative. That's just like, this is why I'm always really skeptical about like third party political movements that are like, we need a more moderate party, etc. It just means you're naive about politics, because you're taking the lazy route to politics. So it's just like, well, it must be somewhere in the middle that thinks that the true answer lies. It's like a kind of an easy heuristic, but the reality is way more complicated than that, because the middle is arbitrary. It kind of lies in this sort of like, Hold on, New Squawk is talking. See, what they want you to think is that there are like natural ideologies that are a part of the universe, that we're not creating ideology, that they just kind of exist, and there's this one way of doing things and then there's this other way of doing things, and the best way is somewhere in between those two things. But the reality is that ideas and ideologies are all just things that we've made up. We've created a system that lends itself towards having two main factions. And those two main factions have become the two factions that we have just because of the history of it, right? And so they're here, and you have this middle, but where the middle is moving all the time, and the whole country can kind of go like this. So all of a sudden, the middle is actually like right of what the far right was several, and that's what's happened essentially. It is the left essentially won culture war, and what is we moved like this. so like your average right winger is more left than the center was 50 years ago. Right? Like, how many people, as an extreme example, how many people do you think you're going to find in the United States that support banning birth control? Right? And nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to say that. Even if you're a conservative that, like myself, that believes that, sex should only happen within the bounds of marriage and that our primary concern should be about raising children and all of that, you're still not going to vote to get rid of birth control. Like, nobody does. Nobody does. But like 50 years ago, or not 50 years ago, it didn't exist 50 years ago, but like when it first came about in the 70s, that was a common position for conservatives, right? So then what happens is they always kind of use this argument about where is the center in the United States versus where is the center in Europe to kind of make this argument that the US should be more left, essentially. We shouldn't be concerned about how left or right something is only in as much as what are the kinds of the social cultural phenomenons that you see on those sides of on the extremes and how they tend to think. But when we're thinking about what we should be doing, we should just be thinking about individual policies and what those individual policies will do to the system overall. Well, see, I don't know how you get liberal means minimum possible taxes, less government, free market. This is kind of funny. The term liberal has really been abused. This is how it happened in the United States, okay? Is liberal originally meant the focus on like freedoms, Like, liberals were the ones that wanted Constitution and God-given rights and all of this sort of stuff, okay? This kind of all dates back, like this terminology all dates back to, like, the French Revolution, okay? So the people on the left in the Congress, when they first had the Congress after the French Revolution or whatever, people on the left were the ones that wanted to just radically change society in every way that possible. And the ones on the right were the ones that were like, they weren't necessarily saying like we should go back to the monarchy, but these were people that were kind of like had ties to the monarchy and were more in favor of the policies that the monarchy would be putting in place, right? So liberal is primarily about basically everybody in the Western world is liberal, right? From the most classic term of liberal, the Western world is liberal, okay? But in terms of left versus right really is more about your approach to change. Do you want radical revolution, destroy everything that you have and create a completely new society? Or do you want incremental change that respects existing power structures? Right? But if you're the one that wants like that radical change, you are going to like believe in those liberal values very strongly, or you should, at least in the United States. That's what it was for the longest time, right? But then, and so that's why we call the left liberals. But then at some point during Obama's tenure, it changed. All of a sudden, the radical change was no longer about that. Which, if you really think about it, is inevitable to happen, because if you have a good society, like that's a problem with radical change, right? Is if you have a society that's pretty good, radical change must mean destroying and tearing down something that's pretty good, right? Oh, you gotta go later, Jiwi. I was just thinking, I don't know why this came into my head at this moment, but the other one that I want in here is nuclear. Nashta, do we think volatility will be pretty consistent from here? Been seeing some nice moves. I would say that this is about standard. That Excel sheet is, I'm trying to build a sector watch list. So there's like the 11 major sectors and then a couple of like really specific things where I want to have like what is the best and worst assets in that field and track and so forth. With a particular mind towards like what are the growth estimates for the company and like what is their valuation on a discounted cash flow basis and so forth, to start working towards a portfolio level strategy for myself. So yeah, I just so if there's some stocks you think we should put on there, let me know and we'll make room for them on this spreadsheet. But when we were going through that earlier, the determination that I had made was like maybe I need to look for some service to kind of help me calculate some of these and allow me to like import them into my spreadsheet. I should save this in a good spot. This PC. Well, there's 07 has been there for a while, huh? I guess I should probably recenter it. Ferrari has done well ever since. Oh, really? Have you seen all this stuff about like, well, it's been happening in on most of the luxury market, but particularly watches and sports cars, that like activity just like dropped off a cliff. That all of these people that bought these expensive cars are trying to sell them now and stuff like that. I was seeing a guy had Rolex. He sells Rolexes, and he had a Panda, which is basically just like a Panda is like the most basic version of their chronograph. So there's certain versions of the chronograph that they go for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the most basic version of it was going for 50,000 at the peak. And he said that now they're having a hard time selling them at 30,000. So drop by almost 50%. Yeah, recently I got into watches. Oh, I have an event today? Oh, that's right. Hold up. Oh, did we move that? I totally forgot about what was going on over here with this. I must have moved it because I never got a notification earlier. Yeah. Okay, that's cool though. That means we got 10 minutes left. I know, like the thing is it was one of those ADHD things, right? Like I did a big binge. I get content about it on TikTok and stuff now, but I got like the one watch, and then I was like, yeah, this is good enough. I don't really need to spend more on watch than that. By the way, I should probably put that back on today. I had like a bruise on my arm, and so I wasn't wearing it, but that went away. I'm wondering, I've been concerned that maybe there's something wrong with me because I was getting bruises really easily. I did cleans on Thursday, I think it was. Clean and jerks. And, when you do that, you bring the bar, you pick it up and it slams down on your shoulders a little bit. Of course, you pat it and everything, but you're still rough sometimes. And I had like these lines, like these red lines down there, like a blood vessel's kind of burst and the blood went off in lines or something. They were like bruises on my arms. It's gone now. Yeah, it's completely gone now. You didn't know I was into so that was kind of funny how it turned out because it was supposed to be like a low impact thing for my ex. And then it actually played a big factor in when I got together with my current wife because she wanted to be fit, and so we started going together, and that's how we ended up spending so much time together and getting together. But she's not doing it right now though. She just can't with the babies, with the toddlers. They're just too much. My autistic son is just too much, unfortunately. But it's turned out to be a really good thing for trading, I think, because there's kind of a couple of sides to this. And one is that trading can be really stressful, and so you kind of need to be used to like going all out, essentially, right? Like if you're a trader, you need to have a physical activity, and I don't think that your physical activity can just be like walking. Right? Like you need to be doing something that regularly gets your heart rate up into like maximum heart rate range. Like really expending all of your energy on a regular basis, sort of a thing. So
Block cell.
weightlifting worked. Okay, that's interesting. At 08 half. Block cell 3000. 08 half. But then the other thing is that you end up sitting a lot. I mean, I sit like, I was looking at it. I actually ordered a chair. I don't know when it's going to come, but I ordered a chair, and they were asking me how much do you sit? They're like, do you sit 8 hours a day? And I'm like, oh, I'm probably sit more like 10 to 12 hours a day, right? So when you spend so much time at the computer, you also need something that really works your posterior chain. And Olympic weightlifting does that really well. This is true strategy when you get rid of that stress personally kicking weights. Yeah. Kickboxing would be another really good one. For sure. Like you need to be able to go all out so that when the stress comes on you, it doesn't kill you. Because if you're unhealthy, okay, and then a stressful situation happens, you just fall apart, man. Your body just won't be able to handle it. Right now, I'd say I'm pretty good on that front, but I'm not doing as well on the sleeping front as I would like. Like last night, I felt like we got to bed at a reasonable time, but I don't think that I had the best night's rest. So yeah, I'm not as diligent in my weightlifting as I should be, but never a week goes by that I don't do something. But I'm not lifting super heavy right now. I'm pretty casual about it right now. I have a hard time every time that I'm getting into the mode again, then something happens that prevents me from working out. So yeah, I go into lots of little interests, and I'll just research something a ton for a short time and then forget about it. You know, just like as an example, the book. Remember, I may have shown you that a week or two ago. I think you were around, Francesco. Went and got I spent whole week trying to decide what kind of a notebook I would get and what's the best kind of pen to write with so that I could write stuff that would be really, really solid and last forever. So that was like a week of research to pick a book, right? I do things like that a lot. Because it's basically like dopamine binging, searching for something and learning about it. It gives you the dopamine. Yeah, as long as you enjoy it, yeah. And then, like it is with watches, because when you go into watches, it's like, oh wow, you could buy millions of dollars worth of watches if you wanted to. So just then you just don't actually spend any money. Oh, the pen that I'm using is a Sakura pen. Yeah, it's actually gonna seem like anticlimactic. Okay, but these pens. So the way that it works is your typical what a ballpoint pen, right? It has a what do we call it? It's not a pigment. It's a dye. There you go. It's a dye. And so the issue that you get with pens like that, for instance, is it can potentially smudge on certain surfaces. If it gets wet, it's definitely gonna wash off, right? The Micron pen is a pigment, And they're made by Sakura. It's a Japanese company. I can get it to like, there we go. Their claim to fame is that they developed a pigment that, the particles were incredibly fine. That's why they call it the Pigma Micron, because it's a pigment pen with micropigments in it. Sakura, yep, just like that. And so when you write with this, you got to be careful with these, okay? Because you write on something with this, it is not coming out. It is not coming out. You just get a solid, dark black line. Like, this is way darker and more solid than any ballpoint pen that you're going to look at. And the tip is kind of like a marker. It's like a what do you call these? A Sharpie. They have the Sharpies that there's like the fine tip Sharpie. That's basically what they are. So it's like fine tip Sharpies with like a plastic nib that the ink comes out of, right? So it's actually closer to like a what do we call these? Like a fountain pen. It's kind of more like a fountain pen in that respect. But these are really popular, like people that do anime or make comics. It's really common for them to use these to do everything. That they'll draw everything with these. So that's the kind of pen that I got. Yeah. So, but that was after a lot of looking around at what there is and everything. And then I had to get a little case so that I could lock it away and make sure that the kids don't ever get to it. Because if they got it and they started drawing around on the house, you'd never get it out, right? All right, hey, it is time for me to get going. So I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, stay